Okay, guys, we are live. So, hello, people. Welcome to the first edition in 2023 of our InstaHire Roundtable. Hope you are having a great new year and following up on your new year resolutions. So, today we bring in a discussion on scale and how to build a core team and how to scale it. So this is a critical aspect of the journey of any company. So let's start the InstaHire Roundtable. For those who are new to InstaHire or haven't heard about it, we are a platform which helps companies source talent 10x faster and better than any other tool in the market. So if you haven't been on InstaHire, this is the time. Okay, now we come to our speakers for today's roundtable. Like, what is an InstaHire Roundtable? First, I will explain that. It's a place where ideas and leaders meet. For today, we have leaders who are the best in the HR and people success segments, who have scaled and built core teams in the super high growth companies. So let's meet them. So we start off with Sunil. We have Sunil. Sunil is the CHRO and Chief People Officer at the Southeast Asian giant Gojek. So over to you, Sunil. A brief introduction about you, what you're building, and how, like, what you're doing in Gojek. So yeah, over to you, Sunil.
Thanks for having me, Paramjeet, and very nice to be on the panel with Param and Sapna. For those of you who don't know, Gojek is started off as a ride-hailing app in Southeast Asia. We're primarily headquartered out of Indonesia, but over time we became the super app of Southeast Asia. So we have a suite of services, on-demand services, which includes ride-hailing, food delivery, logistics, and includes financial services products like pays and wallet, etc. Gojek is now part of the GoTo group, which means we also have e-commerce, with Tokopedia being our e-commerce arm as part of GoTo. So we've had a tremendous journey over the last 10 years or so. And we went IPO just last year. So it's been an incredible journey, particularly the last 4 years. Happy to be here to share those experiences.
Great. Thank you, Sunil, for taking our time and joining with us. Also joining with us, we have Sapna. So Sapna Sukumar is the head of HR at the hypergrowth fintech startup Cashfree Payments. So over to you, Sapna. A brief introduction about you and what you're building at Cashfree.
Hey, thanks, Abhijit. Nice to share the dais with Sunil and Param. And thank you to all folks like InstaHire who have helped build, the tech platform for, startups in the last probably half a decade, right? It's been hypergrowth for all of us. Cashfree, we are India's fourth largest payments company. We are basically a B2B SaaS company, and we started with payouts while the entire world was solving payment gateway. We started with payouts, and we today have about 10 products which are focused towards solving the larger problems of payments, right, on the B2B side. We have grown close to about 15x since the COVID time to now, and we are a core tech and product company, and we believe that any amount of scaling or the reach that we can do possibly is through tech only, right? So we will focus on building a very agile tech and product platform, and building the talent relatively like that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sapna, for taking out time, and great to have you with us. Now we have Param. Param leads TA function at the fintech legend. We have PhonePe. So over to you, Param, and a brief about yourself and what you're building at PhonePe.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Paramjeet, and I'm delighted to share the panel with Sapna and Sunil. I'm currently leading few functions in engineering at PhonePe, and it's been more than 3 years I've been part of PhonePe. And PhonePe started close to around 6 years back, where we started with peer-to-peer UPI payments, and since then the journey has been quite exponential, where we could spread across into different domains that we have. It's been 3 years that we started financial services, and we are about to launch a couple of more products which are into payment gateways and into as well. And yes, InstaHire has been one of the platform which has helped us successfully fill a lot of positions in tech. And thank you so much. And it has helped a lot in terms of our tech hiring needs.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for believing in us. And with that, let's start off the discussion. So here comes my favorite question, and I will have Sunil to start the discussion. So Sunil, my first question is, so what does scaling up, as in scaling up from the core team, look like? Like, what are the team changes? What are the policy changes and the orgs changes which you have seen when the team scales from core to become like 1,000 people team?
So I'd like to challenge that construct of the core team because I think you have teams and those teams look different as the organization evolves. So you have the seed team that you start with, the team that's doing the product market fit, that's exploring opportunities, that's scaling the product, building the rudimentary sort of constructs. And then as you find product market fit, and that's when you start hitting the hockey stick. That's when the scaling journey starts. And depending on your strategy, your teams will start scaling. So if you have a product growth-led organic strategy, then your tech teams will grow fairly rapidly as use cases get tagged on. If you have a more operations bent product or service, then your operations and commercial teams will scale dramatically. So what that does is once you hit product market fit and once you've kind of figured out where your focus is going to be, most people will go where the organic growth is. That part of the organization starts getting fleshed out. It starts getting more people, it starts getting more investment, and you typically tend to have more seniority brought in externally at that point, because your seed team probably is very good at going from 0 to 1. It's probably good at launching things off the table. But then suddenly you're now contending with, hey, I need somebody who can manage 200 people. And these 200 people are hired in the last 12 months. How can I do that? So and at each point in the organization, you kind of hit a milestone bump. So it would be the first 50 people, then the next 100 people, then the next 200 people. And depending on how you grow, the nature of the organization changes. So if you're more operational, your culture becomes more operational, right? If you're more tech and engineering oriented, your culture becomes more tech and engineering oriented. So as you develop, I think as founders or professional managers of these organizations think about scaling, it becomes important to have audit mechanisms to review where you are at any given point in time. And I think good heuristics help, right? When you start noticing normal decision flows start breaking down. Or I think a common frustration is things are so bureaucratic or things are moving so slowly. That's that you've hit a scale point and your decision-making framework within the organization hasn't evolved. Because the bigger you get, the more you have to empower teams, the more you have to devolve decision-making away from the top into the organization, which means you also need review mechanisms, which means the amount of time you spend reviewing how decisions got made and the quality of decisions within an organization starts increasing. You almost, at some point, we spend more time reviewing that than actual core product metrics. And that's how you know that those shifts are happening. So it's important to pay attention to those heuristics as the organization grows. So, and what if the core team evolves? So the people who went from 0 to 1, who got you off the table, they may be great at that, and they may be great individual contributors that you're managing as a founder. But then you may reach a point where these people now need to manage other people, and some of them will grow with it, and some of them will not be able to or will not want to. Right? They're like, I want to be a rock star individual, coder, and I don't want to do anything else. Don't make me manage people. Don't make me explain things to people, which is a common refrain, right? So now you're in the territory of, we have a number of people who are doing the same kind of job at different levels of experience. we need some sort of organization system. So let's bring in a manager or an engineering head or something like that. So using engineering as an example. So this is how sort of teams organically sprout and grow. And then as you start adding more and more specializations within the organization, which you need to do as you grow larger, those teams suddenly need to be managed in a different way. Then the challenge becomes, how do you coordinate across those specializations? Which means you start creating review mechanisms, so business reviews, quarterly, monthly, weekly, etc. So it feels inevitable, but if you want to know what's going on inside the organization, that's sort of one way that happens. And your definition of what a core team is will keep changing. Right? Your core team is always the team that's driving the momentum within the organization. So today that might be product development, tomorrow that might be commercial, day after it might be sales, someone, after that might be operations. So what is the core focus of the organization keeps changing, and who has a seat at the table keeps changing as your business evolves. It's a quick snapshot of my views on that.
Okay, lovely. So, Sunil, as you have explained this, like it's kind of a similar what I have read in a book by Ben Horowitz. Like it becomes a tribe when there are like 50 less than 50 people. Then it becomes a village of like 1,000 people, or maybe like 500 to 1,000 people, and then it becomes a city of 10,000 people. So I think that that is same parallel which we have drawn out here. So I will go to now Sapna. Sapna, you have led teams in like scale teams in midlife, and then also in Simply Learn, and now in Cashfree. So what are your thoughts on this? Like when things become much more organized, okay, and what happens? Like how do we go from like being a 10 people team, like where we know each other by first name, where they are, and stuff like that, and then we go to like a larger segment, a larger section. So how do you think like this goes, and like how to manage this kind of shifts? So like what are the changes in the structure which we have seen, maybe in the motivational level also? So you can like throw some light on that.
Sure, Subhojit. So see, the growth stage is when, the ad hoc people management starts, right? Mm-hmm. And successful startup is based on planned process and not about ad hoc hiring. People always understand that, okay, a scaling process is ad hoc hiring. People do not know what they're hiring. They're just in a hiring spree and things as such, but it is not that. Firstly, we do not starve, the team of the resources.
Sapna, you got on mute.
Sorry. Firstly, as I said, you don't starve the team, of the resources that they need to be successful. Like Sunil said, the focus is very different at different phases, right? Initially, it is about building your product, then it is building your operations, then it is building your sales team. So at different phases, the need of, startups are very different, right? So it is important that we do not starve, and equally, it is important that we do not add the wrong people, in the team, in a hurry, or even allow the wrong people to stay on the team too long, right? Mm-hmm. So I think in the initial phases, lack of focus and prioritization, right, allows a lot of disputes and distractions and impacts productivity, right? So it is, like you said, it's a village that grows to a town, that grows to a, the larger community. And as and when we grow, it is important to get in, different fortes of, be it discipline, be it mechanisms to track, be it more hierarchy and things as such. But while we do this, equally, the initial team or, the core team or the seed team, like Sunil refers, right? There's a lot of, lacks that comes, right? Things that would probably happen over a call, now takes a process. There's a ticketing system to do things, there is a way that we figure out things, and there's a process, right? So people at times, get very agitated, with the way things used to happen before, when the team is small and team is big. But I think, that is the way a larger company grows. You need to have more system in place. You need to address things, in a more disciplined way than be in a hurry. Right. So it is about, how we educate people and how we make sure that, this culture is induced, right, from the seed, as we grow.
Understood. So yes, I completely agree with you, Sapna. That is there. So hiring wrong people at the wrong time can be a lot of losses in dollars, plus in motivation, plus decreases the energy level of the team overall.
Yeah, it is. It is like an organ transplant rejection, right?
Yeah.
Like you do. I think we all know the pains of hiring the talent now, and then we get them, and we see it's not a fit, from either side. Then it's typically like an organ transplant rejection. It is a big mistake,
Yes, it is.
Which causes impact on both sides.
Yes, it is. So thank you, Sapna, for your views. And I will move on to Param. Param, you have been with PhonePe for quite some time, and you have seen this whole journey from a small team growing to a very large team. So I remember when I met you in Bangalore, PhonePe was in the process of, like, say, the hypergrowth stage, scaling up, and now it has scaled up and then again scaling up to the next level. So you have reached some stage. So what are your thoughts on this? What have you seen change in the organization, and also about some people who might have been the major contributors right now, might be managing teams, or might be they might be in different walks of life also. Okay, not on PhonePe. So what are your thoughts on this? How do things change when the core team expands to a larger organization?
Yeah, I think Sunil and Sapna has already mentioned in terms of few things in terms of the strategic changes that happens in terms of policy, structure, processes that the company follow. And in terms of structural changes also, yes, hierarchy comes in, there are new teams which are formed, there are much more defined roles which are there, because when you start with a smaller team, there are not the job roles are not defined specifically. You have to get involved into multiple different things. You have to get your hands dirty. So I think the definition of job roles becomes much more crisp, and a lot of things have changed from the time we have started till the time we are here. A lot of implementation has been on the technology side. We have implemented new softwares. Automation is one of the key things that we believe in. Database approach is one of the key things that we use, so that we save on time and we are able to predict few aspects in terms of hiring decisions, or in terms of joiners declines. So all those are one of the things which we changed. One of the major things which have also changed is in terms of the documentation part. When you are part of a smaller team versus when you grow, so you create different playbooks, you create different repositories, so that whenever a new person joins, it's easy for them also to come join in, and you just share them a link where they are also able to understand certain processes what you guys follow, and so that they don't have to bug you every time, where they have a place they can read about different processes, and they save yours and their times as well.
Okay, sure. So a new aspect is automation and making playbooks for scaling up. So I will note down this. And so the next question which I have, I have it for Sapna. You can start it off. The next question is, so you have seen many teams which are in the seed stage or in the core stage develop. So what are the things which you have seen are the key ingredients of building such a team, the building a core team? What are the key ingredients which needs to be there in a core teams for the company to scale or become a high growth company?
See, firstly, it is important, for the teams to believe in, a startup, come to terms in way of how a startup, I think the very initial, period, how it works, and believe in the founders and the company's vision and mission, right? Nothing is a short. Nothing is a short kind of a site, right? It is a very long shot that one should take in, right? There's a lot of ups and downs, and I think people have to be very agile, right, to understand, and be quick in terms of, moving, their thoughts, plans along with, the way the goalpost, would move in. It is very important to focus on building long-term trust, right, than just what are you fixing in a short term, right? And when I say trust goes both ways, right? A leader, not trusting the post onboarding, like I said, right? It is like an organ transplant rejection itself, right? And it is also important to focus on the silver lining for the role, right? What that role would kind of emphasize, how that role would kind of contribute, not just about the role, right? What the team would look like and how important, it is, for the organization. I think it is important, that we emphasize on all this, especially when we are building the, core team and in the initial days.
Okay, Sapna. So I'll come to Param on this about building a core team. So you have seen the core team being built at different sections of PhonePe. When they have scaled, they have built teams. I'm not talking about the initial leadership team, but the other core teams which you have built on different sections. So what are the things which you have seen are the key ingredients of this kind of teams? So you're in mute, Param.
So while we look for hiring people in the core team, there are certain characters that we look in. Like we'll always look for people who are high on ownership, who are self-driven, who have that ability to work in ambiguity, where they look for opportunities. They grow in terms of the role, and they grow the company as well. And one of the things which has definitely worked, and one of the patterns which I've seen is in most of the people is continuous improvement and learning is one of the key things which has helped a lot of companies grow, because the kind of people that you look to hire, like the core team, that's the team basically which shapes up your future and the product as well. So continuous improvement and learning has helped a lot. So we also run a few programs for our people to scale them up in terms of management and few other aspects as well.
Okay, so ownership, self-driven, continuous learning, and how the person grows in the company along with it. So Sunil, you have seen companies grow from like very large, like become very large MNCs. So what are your thoughts on this? Like how you have seen departments being built and a few people in the department becoming a full-fledged subsidiary also. So what are your thoughts on this? So on your perspective.
So I'll address the what does the team need to have first. I think a lot of what Sapna and Param already have mentioned. I'd frame it along a few dimensions. I think one is competence. So you want people to know what they're doing. Two is curiosity. I think Param alluded to addressing ambiguity, problem solving, etc. So sort of approaching every situation with an optimistic perspective, not getting frustrated as much, because when you're doing anything new, whether it's in a large organization or a small one, you're always going against the grain. In the small organization, the grain is nothing exists, so you have to will it into existence. In the large organizations, you're most likely deviating from what's comfortable and what's normal. So you need that curiosity. And the third thing is you need drive and ambition, where you want to meaningfully change. Goes back to Sapna's point on they have to believe in the vision, the story, the thing that they are building. Right? And I think the fourth dimension here is I think Sapna lovely said it, is trust. So it's how do you get people to buy into the long-term narrative, and how do you energize that long-term narrative in a continuous way? I think those are dimensions that are key to keeping a team together. I think in my own experience, teams that I brought together, which were missing any of these four, didn't stay together for very long because individuals kept churning out. And teams where those four things existed and there was a consistency, they stayed together. The highest performing teams that I put together lasted for 3.5 years. So that's incredible, right? I'd like maybe one attrition in that whole thing. So that was great, right? So that's, I think that's something that's important. To your point on scaling departments or scaling initiatives into its own thing in larger setups, I think there has to be an existential reason that everyone buys into, and two, there has to be an entrepreneurial spark. A lot of people get worried when they see rebellion in their workforce or rebellion in their teams. And I think that's like the wrong response to it. If you start seeing rebellious behavior, that's the signal that there's an entrepreneurial spark there, that there is irritation, and that there are people who are willing to do something about that irritation. And that what they're doing may not look exactly like what you want done. And you have to have either a mindset or a culture or a process that's able to absorb that entrepreneurial spark, right? So when you start seeing, and these things always start as movements. Everyone thinks it's a top-down initiative, right? So it isn't. It always starts bottom up. It's always someone who's bugged by some one thing, or the fact that there's one opportunity that exists that no one's looking at. My favorite example, I won't say which company because I can't, is the company's engineering culture, which was, if you wanted to get promoted, you had to solve increasingly complex problem sets, right? So, and we were building seeding an early stage business in the financial services space in this organization. And there was one business manager who was running around begging engineers to fix this one patch. Just do this one very simple thing. It would generate like $10 million in additional revenue for his thing. And the revenue goal is the business manager's objective. Like meets his goal, gets a good rating. The engineer, he couldn't get a single senior engineer to work on the problem because they're like, this is too simple for me to waste my time on. And then finally, so they were more commercially minded engineering managers who said, hey, this we're solving for the business. This solves the customer problem. This solves the revenue problem. Let's just get in there and fix it. And slowly that became large enough that it became its own initiative and its own program, its own team. So and this is an example. So in an ingrained culture, it can be hard to do things, but then you find a coalition of the willing, so to speak, who come together and solve the problem. And if that problem's big enough, you can become semi-autonomous and do your own thing. So lots of examples like that.
Great. Okay. One quick question. What happened to that business manager who was running about to fix that patch?
He graduated to being a general manager of that work stream. And, he went from being this individual contributor who had to negotiate with hundreds of teams to having people report to him and being a meaningful contributor to the business, and the engineering team that helped grew with him, right? Like the team grew, the people in the team grew, the problem set started growing more complex, so it attracted more senior engineers. So it created a virtuous cycle, but someone had to take that leap of faith.
So it snowballed into one of the largest experiments, which went north.
It became normalized.
Okay. Great example, Sunil. So I move on to the next question on this. This is for Param. What are the critical metrics do you think that HR or HR leaders need to track for a high performance core team? So what are these metrics which you think are very important?
In terms of high performance team, definitely one of the metrics can be the headcount report. In terms of the headcount, you have the AOP planning that you are doing. And definitely while you are looking for AOP planning, company benchmarking is also one of the key things you should look at, because if you are looking to hire people at at 0.9 compa and your company compensation is somewhere at a 0.8 compa, like you will definitely struggle in terms of hiring, because you're looking at top 10% of the talent and your pay scale is way below that. So these are a few of the things which I can say in terms of hiring. I think Sunil and Sapna can add more to that in terms of what has been their key metrics that have helped them in terms of tracking high performing core teams.
Okay. So Sunil, you can throw some light on this, and then we have Sapna also who can
So I have a slightly different take, which is
Okay.
ultimately the measure of success of a core team is, have you been able to meet the business goals? If the business goal is growth, revenue, profitability, whatever it is. So that is the ultimate like sort of metric, right? Now there are some throughput metrics you can consider as more important or less important in that journey. So for instance, if you are a sales-led organization and how quickly you're able to scale your sales organization is a core way of growing your total sales, then you start looking at hiring and retention metrics for that sales organization. And then in addition to productivity as well, right? So are they meeting their quotas, not meeting their quotas? If you're in the business of shipping innovation, then the investments you make in engineering, R&D, engineering culture, bringing in talent, retaining talent over time becomes more important. And they seem very ephemeral to measure, but over time, your business metrics will show up, right? Like I consider Google as a company that is in the business of shipping innovation. Like, I mean, they have a suite of products, but ultimately those products stay relevant over time because they innovate consistently. So what are the frameworks and processes of innovation that are there? And I think if you're in an early stage company and everything you do is existential, are you hitting your core metrics? Metrics that keep you above water, that ensure that your next funding round is a more valuable one. They ensure that are you able to create a talent magnet, which is are you able to hire and retain the right people to help your business grow? I think those become important. So what's important changes. I think when you're dealing with very mature businesses, where some of these systems become self-sustaining, right? So once you reach the self-sustaining part, the metrics you want to look at are things like succession planning. Like, are your top leaders driving momentum in the business? Do you have like a key person risk there, right? Like, do you have succession plans there? Do you have a leadership team that can deliver a differentiated strategy if you're in a crowded marketplace? And how does that show up in market share, etc.? I think these become metrics to track. And you may wonder, like, these sound a lot like business metrics, not HR metrics, but they are actually HR metrics, because ultimately the force in the organization that moves these numbers is people. And it's always a question of, do you have the right person in the right place at the right time, with the right competence and the right mindset? And that combination you have to keep socializing, circulating around. I think the hardest challenge is, as you're scaling, as if you're in a hypergrowth situation, every time you construct a leadership team and you hypergrow to a next stage, that whatever you composed for the for the previous version of the organization may already be falling short. So you have to recompose the leadership team, and this process continuously happens. So I think one of the reasons for burnout, especially at senior levels, is that recomposition. Like, suddenly you're in the decision-making loop, then you're not. Somebody else is, then you're not. Somebody else is, then you're not. And it keeps moving around. So it makes things look inconsistent, but it's actually a symptom of hypergrowth. And it's a symptom of that growth going from somewhere else. So in those situations, you look at different metrics. You look at engagement, you look at culture, you look at retention, you look at well-being, right? You want to make sure that your key people are not burning out. So it varies according to situation, but the high judgment element is your CHRO or your HR leaders need to be able to diagnose what situation, what metric makes sense for that paradigm. And sometimes you change metrics 3 or 4 times in a year. What's important changes 3 or 4 times in a year, depending on what's happening. COVID was a great example. We started the year saying, grow, recruiting is number one, retention of people we've hired, onboarding, and then like within 3 months it became, okay, well-being, do we have our people safe, and that changed into, okay, what do we do about managing costs and things like that. And those things keep changing, and you have to adapt to that.
Okay. And also COVID also taught us about it's not the employee only, the family is also involved in various situations. And one of the major things which Indian startups also and the other countries have also adopted is the talent pool become much more fluid. So like you can hire from anywhere because most of the work was done remotely. That was, I think, one of the major things also where like it came in the scaling the quoting was a little bit easier maybe because you got talent where you could not venture before. So Sapna, you like what are your thoughts on this? What are the key metrics which you have tracked or which you have seen leaders track in the companies which you have worked, or like examples of other companies also you can take?
Yes, sir. So a few very key HR metrics probably is the turnover rate, engagement scores, ENPS, and time to fill leadership positions, because these are very critical in the very initial phases. Right.
Okay.
From a HR and a business perspective, like Sunil touched upon, right? Certainly team productivity and how have BUs contributed to the macro org level OKRs? How has the efficiency been built? And how frugal has the system now become? Because I think in startups we grow too fast, too soon, right? And it can't become very binary. Example is today, if I need 10 recruiters to hire 100 people, I will not need 20 recruiters to hire 200 people, right? So at some point of time, some system, some frugality has to kick in place, right? And we also kind of focus on, what are the continual improvements, right, as part of, OKR and metrics that one leader has kicked in. Right. And we certainly focus, I think, as mentioned, right, we are a tech and product company, and, we focus typically on, productivity in terms of what releases have been made, how it has contributed from, a merchant perspective, from an internal customer perspective. Right. So these are all something that we, focus on in detail, Sarvo.
Okay, great insights.
What we have to understand is, we hire leaders from different industries, right? By their experiences. The problems what they solve will not be helpful here, right? Something like what worked for them does not work for you, or what got you till here will not take you there, right? So these are different phases, and it is very important, for us to have, the org design, at different phases, look into it, re-emphasize, and make sure, like I said again, right, you don't starve the team of resources, or you do not overload, right, the team with too many, non-performing resources or not required resources, right? So it is important to keep, very frugal and look at frugality as we grow.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Sapna, for your insights. Next question I will have for Sunil. So, Sunil, one key questions which has come from our audience and also from some of our core team members also. So when you are say when you're building a core team, when you're hiring for a core team, or when you have given your team, like your team managers to hire for a core team, like how do you get them onboarded into a younger company? And say like when the company is young or the department is just new, it has not started off yet, but you need to hire people to start it off. Okay, so they might be apprehensions. So like the department might not say survive after a few months, or the company might not survive after a few months. So what are the things which you like have seen or you have done when it's the thing is relatively new or young? So the thoughts on that. I've got this question from many people, so that is why I put it up here.
I have the politically correct answer, and I have not so politically correct answer. I'll start with the politically correct answer.
Okay.
Politically correct answer is I think there should be enough conviction, whether you're a new organization or a new department, in the mission of the department, right? An organization is committing to financial resources, energy, time, etc., to invest and build that team. So why wouldn't it succeed? Like you have to take an optimistic bent, and you have to keep going. The politically not correct answer is you have to hype the shit out of it. Like you just have to build a hype machine where you're talking about why this mission is so exciting, why this department's goals exist and how it's going to radically transform the environment it's going to affect. So you really have to like get into it, right? So and as far as so I think that's about just talking about why it exists. If the only thing you do differently in a new environment or a novel company or a new department type situation that's different from a regular onboarding is rituals. You need to create rituals, because what new things don't have is tradition. They don't have habits that have been built because the team hasn't come together really well. So you have to be really conscious of the rituals that you build. And a ritual could be something as simple as every morning, 10 a.m., team stand up, right? Everyone goes around, talks about what they're going to do for the day or what they did yesterday, or whatever you want to cover. Or you make it a point to have celebrations of milestones or, like life events and things like that. So you need to build consciously a set of rituals that uniquely delineates the habits of that team. The second thing you have to do is what we're all very good at, is signaling membership of the tribe. You have a T-shirt, you have a lanyard. Is it very obvious that you're part of this new thing? And the third thing, hype. You have to be I think over communicate with the environment, whether that environment is a large organization that you're a new department in, or the ecosystem that you're a new company in. You have to over communicate to the ecosystem that you're operating in on what you've done, how you're doing it, what the journey is like, everything. Like, hey, we hired a new head of product, or hey, we hired 3 more engineers, and this is how it's going to improve our product or service, or hey, we shipped out this report which has reduced, like time for like 1,000 people somewhere. So whatever it is, small or big, you have to just over communicate for a while. At the risk of almost being that annoying email that people are like, ugh, right? Till you get to that point, you should keep over communicating. And then by, I think, about 6 months to a year, once that's done, people now know what to expect. They know how to treat you. They know what it means to be part of your organization. So that's extra work that you have to do if you're new organizationally. So.
Okay, so that was great. Like, great insights. Ritual, and then like swag or follow the trend. Like we have T-shirts and others, and hype. So yeah, I will go to Param. So Param, you have had experience, like first-hand experience also on this, like in your present organization. So what are your thoughts on this, like onboarding new guys in the new department, or building a new product or new service altogether? So what are your thoughts on this? You're on mute, Param.
I think Sunil has explained it really well. What has definitely worked out in terms of hiring is having a good referral policy, because while you're building your initial core team, you also look for people, like your initial hires becomes the representatives in terms of what essentially you are essentially looking at. And they bring in more people, the kind of because they understand your culture, what the company is involved into doing, what is the mission and vision of the company, and they become the representatives in terms of scaling up the team. And they also bring in people who are looking for creating an impact and who build an ownership and who are self-driven. So having a referral policy also helps in terms of hiring the core team. And in terms of onboarding, yes, as Sunil mentioned, creating a buzz around definitely helps.
Okay. And how important is the leadership also, like in this case, like onboarding and creating the buzz also, leadership can get involved. So how important is this? Like I have had discussions with like Gautam Ghosh and like Rohit Munjal, who is the CHR of Sprinkler. So they were of the opinion that leadership also plays a very, very vital role in creating this kind of hype, because they have more reach and they have the end-to-end understanding of the problem and what the solution is, like how they solve it.
And I think it's also, it flows from top management to lower management as well. and it's also like people reciprocate,
Mm-hmm.
how leaders are, they are the ones who build in the culture. So yes, you're definitely right. Leaders also play a very important role in shaping up the
Mm-hmm.
culture of the initial whole team.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Thank you, Param. Over to you, Sapna. So, your thoughts on this, as you have experience in like midlife and simply learn. So, hiring the core team or like building a new department altogether and onboarding in a new company or a novel environment, as Sunil has explained. So, what are your thoughts on this, Sapna?
Yeah, so my insights would be, have the right blueprint. Don't try to take impulsive, decisions and move forward. Right,
Mm-hmm.
tackle one thing, at a time. And as I think we all are emphasizing, right, hire right people, and once hired, right, have the right mentorship, be it in terms of onboarding, be it in terms of delegation, be it in terms of handholding, learning, development, right? Have the right mentorship and consistently share a long term narrative, right? Why are we doing this? Why this change? How it is going to impact? Constantly and consistently, keep sharing a long term narrative. And again, remember that, the people that you have hired, what worked, the problems that they solved before is not going to work here, right? So be there as leaders and make sure that, they have the right handholding, they have the right narrative, uh, you know, uh, for, for the probably the newbie or the new solution or the new problem that you're solving,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I totally agree with, Sunil, right? If it needs to be over communicating, let's do it and get this done.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Thank you, Sapna. The next question is what we can start with, Sapna, is so when we are scaling from 0 to 1 and from then 1 to 100, uh, like what are the value proposition in both the cases? How is it different for the team members and also the managers and also the core team members? And how does the structure also change? So what are your thoughts on this? Like it basically deals with like how do you motivate people to move from one to another, because people are generally not very keen on change, not like adverse change adverse. So what are your thoughts on this and how to deal with this such situations?
Yeah. So, and before answering this question, I think, change is the only constant, right? I think we all should, be friends to this note, right? And challenges again are very different for the org and for the leaders here, Sarbo, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the leaders, they would need to more strategize and do less by their own self, how they would execute before, delegate more, right, and monitor less, right? I think this is what the leaders should do. And at an organization level, it is about, you will build in more leadership, right? So you will
Mm-hmm.
kind of see some organic attrition, that may kind of happen with people who built the org from, 0 to 1, right? And some misconceptions that we see, right, is that somebody who's doing good, may eventually do the same way, right? And like Sunil mentioned, in the beginning, we assume that because somebody is a great individual contributor, he will become a great people leader, right? So, but when we do this, this kind of backfires at times, right? So it is very important for us to understand whose forte is what, how the roles span out, have a right org design as we grow, right? What are the leadership infusions? What are the role infusions at different levels, right? And at different growth charters, right? What is the long-term vision? What is the short-term vision? It is very important, for the HR people, for the HR folks and the BU leaders, right, to work hand in hand, especially in this transition, Sarbo. I have seen,
Okay.
most of the leaders leave. I have seen, displeasures, right? People feel that, they haven't been given opportunities, right? They haven't been identified. They haven't been kind of rewarded with the, needful insights, right? But I think all this happens, when we understand that, what got us here will not get us there. And when we didn't, address, the right kind of need in the mentorship that we needed to do.
Okay. Okay. ठीक. Thank you, Sapna. Sunil, your thoughts on this? Um, Like when we are scaling up from 0 to 1, 1 to 100, what are the key differences in the team structures and the value proposition in both the cases? Like how do you address issues like maybe motivation or like scaling up issues?
So I think if you, I think we covered a lot of this in the first comment and question. So I'm going to focus a little bit on the team feelings and sentiments aspect. It can be quite disconcerting when you're part of a very small group of people that's doing an amazing amount of work, and you suddenly you birthed nothing from nothing, and now you have to. And you probably could make unlimited decisions, right? Like the decision loops were really short, and it was a very relational organization. But the minute you add people, every single person you add increases the number of communication touch points you need, and it becomes very challenging to retain that relational spirit, that ability to move without permission, so to speak. I want to try something. Let me try. Oh, it worked. Great. Everyone knows. Clap, clap. Now, if you have 100 people, you want to try something, you're going to have a meeting with 5 people who are affected.
Yeah.
1,000 people, you need to have meetings with maybe 5 teams, 6 teams, 10 people each who are affected, right? So I think the responsibilities that an individual has to align the wetware, which is the human aspect of the organization, keeps increasing with the size of the organization in terms of people. So that becomes an onerous task, and a lot of people do not like it. Like I can tell you, I've been working almost 20 years. I don't like it at times. When I have to when I have a really good idea, I think it's a great idea. I want to go out. I have to align 35 teams to make sure that everyone's opinions are affected. This doesn't negatively impact anyone, but it is actually a good idea for the organization. Okay. So the second and third order implications of your decisions really increases with size. So your ability to anticipate and navigate that becomes important. Some people enjoy that, some people don't. So you find, and a majority of the people I work with do not enjoy that process, because you have to, it's like I was brought here to build things, not to align people, right? That's a very common statement, or some variation of that statement you hear very often. And the reality is, your job is not just the thing you do in a larger and larger setting. And when you go hyper growth, your brain has a lag catching up with your org, because in your mind you're like, okay, when I started this project, I spoke to the 5 people who are going to be impacted. Now the team size is doubled or tripled in the time it has taken me to complete this project. Now all these new people are saying, hey, this stuff doesn't work, I don't believe in it, what's going on? And you're like, what the hell happened? Everyone was on board, right? And those 5 people who agreed with you might have left the org by the time So there is this cognitive dissonance that you have to deal with on a constant basis, and that's more pronounced in subscale organizations that are growing very rapidly. The only place where you don't have to deal with it, I don't think there's any place where you don't have to deal with it, but the only place where you feel less uncomfortable doing with it is where your wetware keeps up with the pace of organizational change, and that's only in very, very large organizations. The pace of change is slow, right? A decision made in Jan, it's executed in July, and is finished in December. That's not the environment most of us live in now. And with a lot of stuff that we do increasingly become digital, online, decision-making loops are getting faster and faster and faster. It's more about people move at the speed of people. And that dissonance, and your ability to be comfortable with that cognitive dissonance and acknowledge that my situation has changed. And my work effort may have been valuable at the start, but it's now useless, right? Or not as valuable, or irrelevant, whatever paradigm you're in. Your ability to acknowledge and accept that is what determines your ability to keep pace with an organization. A lot of people don't. And you find what I call startup specialists, 0 to 1 specialists. They really enjoy being in teams less than 20. The minute that goes to 25, 30, 40 people, they're like, look, I'm done, I'm moving on. And there are some people who are experts at large organization management, which is, I can't work in an organization that's less than like 1,000 people because I just don't know what to do. So everything needs to be ordered, and I like aligning people. So you have people on both ends. So it's a question of finding the right mix for where your company is at.
Great. Completely agree with you, Sunil. So I've seen this happen in different organizations which we have worked with, and also in our company also. So yeah, so completely agree with all of the things which you said. So over to you, Param. Like, what are your thoughts on this in the case of like different differences in team structure and value proposition when we like grow from like a 10 people team to 1,000 people team? So yeah.
Yeah, as Sapna and Sunil already mentioned, there are a lot of changes which happens in terms of structure. And there are layers added between. The team grows exponentially, and then the time it used to take you to complete one work, and when the team was smaller versus when the team grows was significantly increased. You are involved into a lot of influencing and convincing as well why you are going with certain approach or why you want to execute this certain task. So that is one of the things that change in terms of the structure. And in terms of the value proposition also, while the company are in the initial stages of 0 to 1, a lot of things are in terms of the growth and work. And while the company and you essentially look for people who can own, but who are high on ownership. But when the team grows, right, you also look for different aspect of people, like who can manage multiple teams. You also look for people who are executioners, who can who are very good in taking directions, and you just tell them and then they will execute the work which is there. And in terms of the value proposition also, a lot of things in terms of culture, the mission and vision of the company, what is like working for a particular company, what are the do's and don'ts, right, and what are the best practices. So these are the few things which changes and evolve with time. And few things in terms of rewards, recognitions, and few things in terms of benefits, policy also change as the team structure grows.
Okay, great. So with that, we come to the last question of this session, and so we can start with Param and then Sapna, and then we can have a closing from Sunil. So Param, the last question is: what are some key pointers for scaling up core teams, which are valuable for us and also for our community members? So this session, as you know, that will be sent to across around a large community of around 70 to 80,000 people who are in the HR and the entrepreneurship. So like, what are your thoughts on this key pointers which they have to take in mind when they are like building or scaling up their teams?
Yeah, so while you look for scaling up or building the core teams for any of the companies, one thing which definitely highlights above everything is the quality of work, right? So quality of work is one of the key things which has to be high always, and one of the main reasons why people join startup or initial companies at their initial stages, because there is a lot of learning for them, and they are also able to move quickly up the ladder. So that is one of the things. You also need to have a sustainable architecture in terms of growth. Like, you should not overhire people, or you should not have a random approach in hiring. It has to be systematic, because even you would have seen, and a lot of other Sapna and Sunil would also have seen how other smaller and different startups struggled while COVID hit. Right, they didn't had the runway, and eventually they had to lay off people. Right, so that's also one of the things which having a sustainable architecture is one of the things. And moving to automation has definitely helped. Always have a data-driven approach in terms of the decision which you take, and use appropriate metrics that you have. And hiring becomes very critical. So definitely, have necessary resources that you have in your maybe in terms of the tool or in terms of your recruitment team. One few of the challenges, if you ask, I would say, definitely while the company grow, somewhere the essence of the culture is also diluted if you don't, take care of it. And, if you, keep on adding people, culture is also one thing which you should, keep hand in hand while you are growing in the team. So that is one thing. And, definitely taking right hiring decisions is one of the key aspects, I would say. Like, definitely know what are your right hiring numbers and what you should, go about. Definitely don't overhire. If possible, have lean teams, have high ownership, high performers who can, drive you to success.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Param, for your very valuable insights. Over to you, Sapna. What are your comments and suggestions and techniques which you want to share with our community members who are trying to scale up and build core teams?
Yeah. So, Sarvu, I think we all have learned our lessons enough by hiring virtually during COVID, not meeting candidates, hiring some great folks, hiring misfits, right? People have, joined the organization without having met their managers. People have left the organization without having met their managers in person, right? So and we have seen that, okay, an individual was great, but later I do not know what happens. And this is, see, COVID was a very out of syllabus thing for us, right? None of us ever dealt with it. None of us ever studied how to deal with it. None, or probably 2 generations before us never taught us how to do it because they never did it too. And most of the situations in a startup are also like this, right? I mean, it's unlike other probably settled dogs. It's not like a problem that you get 6 months ahead of what are you solving, right? Probably 6 months may the goalpost would have already moved once or twice, right?
Mm.
So have very defined input metrics and output metrics for the role. This is very important, right? It is very important. We have JDs and we have all these fancy things, but have the right input metrics, right? And have the right output metrics for every role. Hire sustainably, right? Don't get into ad hoc hiring, like Param mentioned, right? And have scalable partners, be it tools that you are associating, be it teams that you are hiring, be it, your recruitment partners, be it the policies that you may kind of launch for referrals, right? Please have them, more scalable so that they kind of, serve you probably for the next 2 to 3 years, right? And culture, right? It is very important. Today, if you would see Cashfree, the average age of, the engineering team is about 25, 26 years, very young team, right? And again, when we look for leaders, we have these questions that come up, right? You have all a Gen Z team, and how do you think a millennial is going to come, and how are the thoughts? See, when your culture is right, you should not be worried about how a millennial is going to manage a Gen Z or how a Gen Z is going to manage a millennial. Just because you have a crowd who's all of 25, 26 years, we can't go searching a leader who is of 25, 26, right? So my point is, when you have the culture right, it is not about, how old, how senior, or which industry or what somebody is bringing in, right? It is about what value creation, one does, as a leader for the people, as a leader for the BU, right? I think that is important, and culture is a very key and a core aspect, right, when we are hiring and growing teams, Sarbu.
Okay, great insights, Sapna. And I'll go over to Sunil. So this is the last question which we have, and then we will have a couple of questions, and then we can close this. We have already run out of time. So yeah, over to you, Sunil.
Simply put, I think go slow to go fast, because when you're scaling, it's very easy to fall into randomness and just poor habits. So take the time initially to sort of codify how you're going to scale, like how you're going to hire, how you're going to onboard people, how you're going to check in with those people. Because hiring 10 people into a team of 10 people is also a burden on the team. You lower the productivity of the team by adding 100% of the team, right? You're not increasing capacity. So it's so go slow to go fast. I like to compare it a little bit to, I almost say, be religious, because religion is something that people just practice irrespective of the situation changing around them. So the habits you build within the organization, be religious with them. Continue to ensure, like, it's very tempting to say, look, we have a 5-person interview loop. Let's cut it down to 3 because, we just can't keep up. Or let's do batch onboarding for people irrespective of what career level or what experience level they're coming in at. That probably works when you have 0 years of experience. It works very poorly when you have a few years under your belt because your perspective is a little bit different. So you may need to do a little bit more of a focused, tailored onboarding for people with more experience. So I think just be thoughtful about the way you do it, but go slow to go fast. Don't resist the urge to take shortcuts, because it'll always fail. Like, I think I used to joke with our head of recruiting that 100% of the hiring mistakes I've made when I've short-circuited the processes we agreed to. 100%. Like all the hiring mistakes I made were because I short-circuited the process and I missed some valuable data point that the process would have given. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So great insights we have got, and right now we move on to the next part, which is the Q&A. We'll have a couple of questions and we can close it. So first question, Anita asked for Sunil. So how do we do dispute management when we grow from like a small team to a large team? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So it's difficult to answer the question. You do dispute management the same way for a 2-person team as you would for a several dozen team. I think what's going to be important is having mechanisms to understand the underlying trigger of those disputes. Is it structural issues, like are you making people compete for the same resources, priorities? Is it interpersonal issues? Is it is it resourcing issues, which is like there's not enough resources and everyone is scrambling to do stuff? So I think it's important to understand the underlying root cause of the issue. When you're smaller, that's very easy. It's evident what the issue is. But when you're larger, you have to get a little more systematic about it. If you're 1,000 people and Department A is not talking to Department B, or Team A is not talking to Team B, that becomes a different scale at which you analyze the problem. So I think that the mechanisms you use to evaluate the root cause of these disputes changes, and the interventions accordingly change. If it's 2 people, it's usually in a smaller setup, it's usually interpersonal or a prioritization conversation. In a larger setting, it's probably a goal alignment, resourcing, prioritization. There may be multiple factors, or the personality clash of the people right at the top, which cascades to the team. So I think there'll be a bunch of things like that we need to figure out. So it's about what mechanisms you will use that change to investigate the root cause.
Okay, so hopefully Nita has got her answer, and now we have another question by Anant for Param. So how do you motivate team members who have been in your company from the very, very older stage, like from the core stage, right now when you are growing in a large scale? How do you motivate them to operate at the same level? So very valid question, I suppose, in this scenario.
One of the main, one of the things definitely for them in terms of motivation, I would say, is definitely work. And in terms of growth is one of the things I would say. And giving them ownership is one of the key things I would say, because then if they have already spent enough time in the organization, the impact that they are able to create, right, that is a space that you have to give. So definitely, giving them ownership and the impact that they'll be able to create from that is one thing which I definitely believe in. Having a personal touch, not only work-wise, but also having a connect in terms of personal touch is also one of very important things to do. And I think it's majorly driven by ownership and accountability that I believe in.
Okay. Thank you. I think Anant has got his answer. The next question I have got from Abhishek. So this is the last question which we'll take. What are the cultural issues which you have faced in like when scaling it up? This is for Sapna. So Abhishek asked for Sapna. What are the cultural issues you have faced when you're scaling it up? So anything like in this?
Thanks, Abhishek, for the question. Certainly, one is attrition of organically, grown leaders. Second one is infusion of external leaders and a cultural shift, right? And how do we manage that shift? The changes that happen within the organization, and also what an external what external factors throw up, right? Example, you are seeing the macroeconomic crisis that is happening now, right? So this was not something that we also did foresee, right? And this environment is now kind of putting a pressure on the organizations to look at to emphasize more on performance, to emphasize more on scale, right? So there are a lot of internal factors and external factors, right, that probably pushes or throws a lot of challenges at different times. Okay. Certainly, I would see with growth, there is an organic attrition of leaders who built the organization, right? And cultural shift of where the organization was probably, on a day 0 or a 1 to, a year 5 and 6, right? The challenges that it has, the problems that are solving, the scale, for what the problems are being solved, very different, right? And it expects, one to kind of grow with the organization and also multiply their, thought process accordingly.
Great. So Abhishek, you got your answer. Thank you, Sapna, for explaining it so well. With that, we come to the end of the entire roundtable, the first of the year, and we had got great leaders this time, and hopefully you have got all your questions answered. If you have any more questions, I will send across these questions over email to you guys, and then you can answer them. Thank you for joining in, Sunil, Sapna, and Param, taking your busy. Taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us for the roundtable. Thank you so much, and hopefully you had fun. And thank you, the committee members who have also joined us live.
Thanks, guys. Have a great year.
Thanks everyone. See you. Bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you. Bye.